Today I have something interesting. If you want to build yourself a 4K emulation machine on a budget, this is one of the best ways to go to. It's quite a massive machine, but that is a particular reason why I actually purchased this. However, I do need to point out there are different models out there. This is actually a 9th generation Intel. Normally when we're going to be talking about the HP ProDesk PCs, we're going to be having these very tiny little machines. But in this video I actually went for the big model, and I can tell you this is the biggest model they have with a simple reason. The machine itself comes with an onboard GPU inside of the modem board. But what we can do with this model is implement a GPU and combining this with, let's say, a simple one. This is actually a GTX 1060, but you also have different kind of models. So when it comes to the do I say that correctly? Nope, I had a brain fart. It's a 1050. So these GTX cards are really inexpensive. But if you're going to be using this for emulation and do a little bit of upscaling, we can have some really cool options. But if you don't care about, let's say, high-end emulation, 4K rendering resolution, I made a video about the ProDesk, the small version, that also utilizes an Intel chip in the inside, and it was really cool. But that is something for a different video. But why actually such a big case? So with a simple reason, because low profile GPUs, we do have limitations there. But when it comes actually to the GPU, I can tell you that like the slim models are or the low profile models are actually, you can find them, like 1030 and all kinds of very wicked models. But they're like maybe less powerful and they're a little bit more expensive. Where these bigger models are super easy to find and they're like super cheap. Another thing is this thing comes with an internal power supply. Of course you don't need to do some crazy things when it comes to the GPU because we do have some minor limitations there. So what I love about this card, you can see there is no external power usage for the power supply, so you don't need to mess around with that. But let's open it up, let's do a peek in the inside and actually let's put the card in. We can actually flip this part open over here. I'm at the wrong side, there we go. Hoopa! And then we can just pull out this particular part over here. It's like Lego. Mamma mia! And let's plug this bad boy in here. Boop! Click! And we're done. That's how easy it is. Yeah! It's a very tight space. You can actually see that there's not even a lot of space between the bracket over here. So you need to be very careful what kind of GPU. So these very basic ones are just fine. I'm just going to be leaving in over here the SSD. But what you can actually do is plug in your Bodosera drive. Yeah, so that is one of the convenient things too. So not only in GPU, but also you can slap in your drive there and we can just play some Bodosera. These mini PCs most of the time come with DisplayPort, so we're going to be needing to use an HDMI converter, but we're not going to be needing that today, because it utilizes an HDMI, so that we're going to be using with Bodosera. Today we're going to be using Bodosera, and we can also use it with an external USB. So one of the convenient things is that we can even do dual boot if you want to. You can use in Windows, but also just dual boot into Bodosera. But of course in this video I just wanted to test Bodosera with an extra GPU and just see how far we can push it. But the other thing we're going to be doing is hooking up a controller for the first time boot. So with the controller we're going to be using an Xbox 360 with XMPoot. You can use a Beto or some other brand if you want to. And let's see, verification failed, blah blah blah. Oh man, I freaking hate these HP PCs when some of these say have some problems. But the most fastest way is actually getting this thing to boot up is putting your drive in the machine itself. Of course you can try to go into the USB mode, but one thing you need to do is going into the BIOS. The starter menu, because in here we're going to be having a little bit of shenanigans going on. So let me give you a quick overview. So having a continue boot, system information, and what we're going to be needing to do is go into the BIOS setup. Yep, because in here we're going to be finding over here security, and we're going to be messing around with it. This is the thing what I kind of hate about, like say the HP, but also the Dell is like a freaking nightmare. So we need to find into the advanced options like secure boot configuration. So legacy support disable, secure boot. So what I need to do, and here it goes, legacy support disable and secured boot disable. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing. Next thing we're going to be doing is going out of the system, but we need to do a saving. If we're not going to be doing a saving, we're going to be having a little bit of weird shenanigans going on. So let's see, we're going to be exiting. So what we need to do is save the changes over there. And you want to save changes? Yes. And if everything's supposed to be, is we're going to be having the option to just boot up into the drive. Because if you disable and enable that, it's like world of difference when it comes to booting up into Bodacera itself. I was getting messages that wanted to boot, but it couldn't because of secure boot. Yeah, I messed it up. Okay, wait. Please type in the below number. Okay. 2440. And let's see. I need to press enter, I think it is. And now it needs to be booting up. There is a weird way going on. If this isn't like correctly configured, then that will boot up at all. And there we go, Bodacera is booting. So one of the things, you need to get the latest model. Now is this like an older Intel, but if you're going to be having like newer AMD or version of Intel, it's possible it doesn't boot up at all. So we are ready to go with Bodacera. So there are full tutorials out there how you need to set it up. So you're going to be needing the keyboard if you need to add games and stuff like that. So there's something you need to take consideration. But for now, I just want to do a little bit shit about the nerdy mode and to see what we can actually do. Still messing with the buttons, okay? ASPA for once. So you're going to be having over here some information about everything, temperatures and everything else. So we are using the i5 9th generation over here. And it's kind of interesting, it doesn't actually show the GPU at this point because, you know, yeah, that's really weird. Because it's actually in here. I'm using the HDMI of the GPU, but we do see OpenGL and Vulkan support. We do have like CPU number and 6 over there. So specification wise, this is going to be a lot of fun. Let's double check if the audio. So I think it's been set to HDMI, but it does actually say over here Intel. So I'm curious what is going on over here. So what we're going to be doing is UI settings. Can we actually turn on the background music, if there is even like background music. But if you're going to be looking into the audio output, you can see they're having all kinds of different models. Was sent to HDMI, but that's the one we're not going to be needing. What we're going to be needing is using, you can see having all kinds of NVIDIA. That's really weird. So we can do two things. You can put it on auto. It does actually say we need to reboot the system. And let's see if we're going to be having audio itself. But what is kind of funny that the HP machine come with a built-in speaker, and yep, it actually uses that freaking internal speaker. So yeah, we do need to actually force them into like the NVIDIA HDMI outputs. Oh man, reset again. The first thing that we actually did now is going into, let's say, the update. Yep, update over there. And we're going to be checking for updates. We did that. We started the update and rebooted the system. And now we're going to be running on the version 42 as making this video. And the reason why, because now with information, yeah, we finally do have the NVIDIA being installed and recognized. So let's see if we can force the auto the overall audio output, though let's say using the NVIDIA, but we do have the GTX 1050 over here. It's full HD resolution, and yeah, this is going to be epic, because now we can push it to the limit. But let's fix the freaking audio. Oh, let's see if we can fix it somewhere. So after messing around, I managed to get the audio to work. Let me show you what I actually did. Oh crap, I was messing with the controls. So running some PC Engine, you know, when it comes to these simple games, you don't actually even need the big GPU. Wait, you don't even need a massive case like this. You can do that just fine, you know, with those other, like say, tiny HP ProDesk devices. So I wanted to focus. I will try out a couple of games, but also another thing I've noticed, like the visual output, having an external GPU is absolutely beneficial to the overall gaming experience, because I do have the idea that everything looks so much better and vibrant because of the GPU, of course. An onboard GPU is all fun and game, but nothing beats like a real powerful AMD, or in this case NVIDIA GPU externally. So regarding the audio levels and everything, so you need to go to system settings. In my case, it was a little bit of a hassle, but yeah, you need to put the audio output on auto. And in my case, we're going to be having the HDA, NVIDIA Digital Serial HDMI output, because we're actually going to be using HDMI at this point. So everything is set up. And I think I need to crank up the volume over here. Let's put it on 90. The weird thing is, like, at first I was messing with it, looking or actually listening to the background music, but I have no idea why my background music doesn't do anything. You know, I was just testing it and I was like, why does this freaking thing doesn't do anything? Okay, let's shut it down. Let's shut it back on. Nope, background music is completely messed up. Well, whatever. Let's get into the game. The audio was a little bit low when it comes to that, so I just wanted to see what's going on. Let's go with Game Boy. I love the cover art, everything has been scraped. Let's get into some Adventure Island of the Game Boy Classic. Boop, 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 boop. So regarding the bezels, you can always change it out if you don't like it at all. I think it is pretty cool. And like I mentioned before, it makes no sense actually playing this on this PC because this runs without any problem whatsoever. So another thing I just wanted to deep dive into is of course N64, because this is such a pain in the ass to actually run on most of these devices. So now with some more GPU power, we can do some pretty cool things. So first of all, let's get into the pressing A. We're going to be having the extra option, advanced game options over here. And yeah, we can mess around with rendering resolution. So you know what I'm going to be doing? Let's put this thing on 9020 by 4040. And let's leave it to the, let's see, the auto emulator. But we can mess around with this later on if we want to. And let's boot it up and let's see how Cruising USA runs on higher resolutions. And the reason I actually wanted to try this out, yeah, you know, we're running actually on, so say, high resolution or full HD. And I think it's pretty cool, but let's see what we can do. So it's also like a question like how compatible is the GPU with Batocera. So we're going to be running just a mid-range graphics card. You can see on 30 frames per second because this game was, I think, is locked. But you know, it's going to be, let's see, it's going to be dipping. And again, if you're going to be getting yourself a 1060 or something else, then it also has support when it comes for the power supply. Yeah, you can have some insane cool performance. But in this way, I just wanted to showcase what can you do with some simple things. Woo, there we go. But let's go crazy, you know? Let's go crazy with some Golden Eye. And let's see if we have the game over here, Golden Eye. Let's hold it. All right, the A button, advanced game options. Let's go with rendering resolution. Let's go with, don't go too crazy, 9 times, 2880 by 2160. All right, and let's leave it over there and let's boot up the game. Let's see how far we can push this thing. Take consideration that this game is super difficult to actually emulate. And again, we can still mess around with emulators, so we have like weird glitches, but I don't care about that. I just wanted to see out of the box. Let's put on the auto, let's see how far we can push this crazy game. And again, take consideration that we're going to be having like the option to lower the resolution, but I just wanted to see, to have the idea like the frames are so much better, and that actually shows in the right corner. Running 20 frames, and again, like we can lower it, but this upscaling situation is pretty cool. So it's now hitting 30. Let's go to a more difficult part, more crowded. So the overall frames are quite stable. I wondered if we put it in like a high resolution, but I think this is a great showcase what we can do having like a 9th generation i5 in combination with a GPU. Like it has like a slow dip now, with a lot of stuff going on. So let's look into some GameCube rendering over here. So rendering resolution, let's go with 4K rendering resolution on this simple one when it comes to, let's say, the GPU we're using. And let's start some crash. Ooh, but let's boot it, let's see how far we can push it out. What does it actually do when not having the right files? But despite that, we're going to be having a low powered, simple let's say an older 9th generation i5 combined with an GTX 1050. It's crazy. You can run this on 4K rendering resolution and the GPU is not even used 100%. So meaning we can even push this a little bit further if you want to. But again, this looks really nice. Rendered to 4K rendering resolution. Having all kinds of different kind of games you can just play, and I can tell you we tested out a couple of them. So it was fun if you're going to be accidentally pressing the button. Okay, so open Beats of Rage with all kinds of very cool custom games that you can just play. The unfortunate, depending on what kind of, let's just, what kind of image you have. This is absolutely one big mess with all kinds of weird crap on it. Let's see what's going on. Having Beats of Rage, Art of Fighting, Boar Remix 3. But you know, one of the things I wanted to check out if it even boots up, because this is like a general problem. Oh, I already tested a couple of things, but some of them didn't even boot up. So that is quite unfortunate. Oh man, they've created some really wicked stuff. But I think it's also the open Boar engine. My favorite one is always going to be the Street of Rage, let's say, Remake Edition. But does it play Doom? Yes, it absolutely does play Doom. Let's see if I can start the game, because there was some weird thing going on. Controls are all messed up. Oh. Yeah, it's a weird configuration, but woo, turbo, let's run. And also this seems to be working fine. Can I reset it back to the menu like that? Yep, fairly easy. There's some weird thing going on. Super tux card. Let's see if it's going to be booting up. But again, if you just love these games, you don't really need to have all kinds of, let's say, GPUs added. Oh man, what a mess. That is what we're going to be having to deal with if you're going to be building yourself images. Oh boy. So Atomic Wave, another interesting system. What is it? Even more interesting, there's also some random stuff in here. This is not only Atomic Wave, that's clear. Faster than speed. Oh, that was a cool game. But what you can maybe do, even if you're going to be going to the advanced options over here, you can mess around with the emulator. Let's leave it to auto. I think some of the emulators do have the option to actually do a little bit of an upscaling if you want to. And it doesn't boot up. And I'm not surprised, to be honest. So let's see what's going on. We have also kind of messages. So the overall image I'm actually using now is super incomplete. And that's quite annoying. See, stuff doesn't even boot up. Yep. And that's the thing that we need to deal with too. So it's kind of a mess when it comes to that. Like a gazillion double games. Oh man, I really hate it. Look at this. That's absolutely a freaking waste of space, having 3 games. And maybe there are different regions, but they make no sense actually just putting duplicate games. But let's see what's going on if you're going to be switching between different emulators. I just wanted to showcase what you can actually do if the auto fails. Japan Shinchido. And this way you can just go through different emulators, because the auto function does sometimes fail, or it is indeed not working at all. With all kinds of different ones. Let's see, Chronos, Japan Shinchido, we tried out. We have the Beetle. I think that's the most heavy one to actually have for emulation performance. Let's see if something is going to be happening. No, so it's not going to be happening anytime soon. Oh, we do have like another one. It can also be the game itself. Let's see, we have like this weird one. GMIR, okay. Let's switch it to that. And I think it's like none of the emulators work. So what I hate about these, let's say, wicked freaking images is that we're having this problem so many times. I do wonder like if this is like a general game issue, or is this like going to be an overall problem with the emulator itself? Yeah, see. So let's move to a different kind of image, because I am a little bit done with the overall configuration and everything of the previous one. So let's go with the Dreamcast over here and let's go with having some fun with it. So when it comes to, let's say, the Canon Spike situation and all kinds of cool games, let's go with upscaling if we want to. So the weird thing is, like with the Dream emulator, the one I really love, doesn't have support for that. And I think that's to do because of the version that's on there. But let's see which one can actually do a little bit of cool, like upscaling. Let's see, rendering resolution 4480 by 3360. Let's go with that. And let's see if we can actually push it to the maximum. So I have been messing around with these things for quite a long time now, and I can tell you that when it comes to playing Sega Dreamcast, sometimes you will be surprised how overall good or bad the performance is. You can see that we're not hitting like 40 frames in the beginning. So one of the things I'm always a little bit surprised by, if you're going to be using, let's say, such a basic GTX card, how great the overall performance can be. And in-game, we're hitting 60 frames per second on crazy, let's say, upscaled resolution. So we don't need, like, say, some insane expensive PC. But let's move to some other platforms. Moving on to 4K rendering resolution on the PlayStation. And I mean the PlayStation 1, and there was no problem whatsoever running this. So I can see you can even, this was 9x resolution. I think there is even an option for 16 times or something crazy. So if you want to mess with that, I think the PlayStation 1 generation is one of those generations that are fun, but they are not graphical, the most impressive ones. But again, if you're doing a little bit of a 4K upscaling, I think it's pretty sweet. But that makes of course wondering, like, how will it be when it comes to, say, other games, but also when it comes to PlayStation 2. Because I don't think we're going to be having a problem with playing some PlayStation 1 games at this point. You know, whatever. Let's go to the PlayStation 2. So moving on into the PlayStation 1, have been set the resolution to 4K. Let's see how it goes with some burnout gaming. I'm really curious, so we're running outside full speed in the menu. But let's see what's going on. It actually recognizes the GTX 1050 in the emulator, so that's good. And we're just running like a full speed 4K PlayStation 2. Yeah, this is no problem whatsoever, so I think that is pretty sweet. And again, I think I can even do a little bit more upscaling if you want to. But again, the 4K is just more of, and we have so much stuff that we can actually mess around with. So, moving on to the PlayStation Portable and some other cool stuff. Let's see what's going on. Well, let's get further with the PlayStation 3 emulation. So if you're going to be combining this with, say, not the GPU, I think we can even play this on an onboard GPU if your Intel chipset isn't not like the really old prehistoric ones. I've seen PlayStation overall emulation on, let's say, I think it was like the 11th generation of devices. But of course, with now more power, we're going to be having, of course, overall better performance. I think it's pretty cool. I wanted to start like doing upscaling. You can mess around with it if you have like enough power when it comes to, let's say, the GPU itself. Let's give this thing a reset. I actually wanted to do another testing. I must say that this is like the most demanding system of the PlayStation 3. But one of the games I always love to play is Ridge Racer. Ooh. So Ridge Racer 7 is actually a game that I really love playing. I think these Xbox 360 and PS3 era of games were pretty cool. But when you're going to be looking into like the really old school stuff is absolutely one of this I personally prefer. The first time you need to actually doing this, particularly like building the SPU cache. But you can see that it's pretty fast. Again, the overall performance of this CPU is quite enjoyable now. So let's take a closer look at some old school arcade. And let's go with arcade itself. Let's see if we do have any problems with, let's say, playing this on this particular CPU, GPU. I can still remember that when I actually played this on some basic stuff from China, we had like a lot of problems. But we're going to be just playing PlayStation 3 on native resolution. I think the most interesting part was actually having PlayStation 1 and 2 on 4K rendering resolution and sometimes even higher. Let's see if we do have some weird things with screen tearing or other problems. So far so good. So yeah, the emulation performance is really enjoyable. And again, like depending on what kind of emulator version you're running, I've actually installed the latest Sierra. That is very important if you're going to be doing setups like these. There's some weird glitching. I actually did the boost. Or was that me? No, it was like the glitching. So but you can see, like, when it comes to the overall configuration, yeah, this is pretty cool. We can go to the home menu, mess around with settings if you want to. Not going to be doing that. So PlayStation 3 emulation is pretty good and absolutely enjoyable. With the PlayStation Portable or the PPSSPP emulator, we're going to be putting this on rendering resolution 10 times. Let's put frame skipping on off, and let's see heads-up display. Let's go performance, and let's boot up the game. Maximum PlayStation Portable, yeah! I don't see any problems going on. Full 60 frames at the moment. Let's make a save state. It's going to be convenient. Particularly, we're going to be testing out some more stuff, more hardware. We have some screen tearing going on, so that's something we need to look into to see what settings. But for now, we're going to be checking out some performance. It's actually running an OpenGL. Oof. Ooh. That was completely messed up. So the screen tearing is really annoying. We can go to settings. We need to actually set this to Vulkan, but I think I cannot do that from here. Normally we need to actually get into the Sierra. Let's go with the load state over here. Let's go checking out with Vulkan. I just want to quickly like switch it out. But if you're going to be looking into PlayStation Portable, also here we have like some amazing performance too. And I think this is such a fun overall experience, with just having all kinds of different emulators running on really good over, let's say, high-end settings. But again, if you find some minor, let's say when you're going to be finding some minor hiccups, I think it's more like an emulator problem than actually having like some hardware. Like 54, we can of course we can lower it if you want to. Haha, I got a shield. But yeah, this runs pretty good. Let's go to an action menu. We can go into different kind of games if you want to. For example, having Ghost Rider. We have like a load state, so that's convenient. I love that you can just switch. I don't know what the resolution is at this moment. Yep, 10 times. It does recognize actually the GTX GPU. But that's it. Let's go back to the main menu itself and let's exit. Boop, 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 boop. If you're going to be combining this, let's say, old school massive PC with a good GPU, we can actually have some fun with it. You can see that we can do some crazy upscaling and for even not a lot of money. Again, it also depends what kind of, let's say, PC you're going to be buying. And what do I mean with that? So the HP models come in different kind of variations when it comes to AMD or Intel. So this is actually the 9th generation. So that was actually using today. But again, like the CPU is also very important, but also the GPU. And this combination, I think you don't need to spend a lot of money, but still have some really cool performance. Let me know in the comments what do you think of this setup. Thank you all for watching, and it will be great to see you in the next video.